Have you ever played a massive cinematic game like God of War and then found yourself just as immersed in a simple but beautiful game like Stardew Valley? What makes these games so different, not just in how they play, but how they're actually made? Hello everyone, I'm Piers Duplock, producer on over 30 titles in the video games industry, and today we are going to be talking about the difference between AAA games and indie titles. From everything between budgets to burnout, everything that goes on behind the scenes, we're going to take a look today. So let's get stuck straight in. AAA games are like the Hollywood blockbusters of the video games world. They're developed by massive studios, sometimes even multiple studios at the same time, working under massive umbrellas like EA, Ubisoft, Xbox. The dev teams for these games can include hundreds, if not even thousands of people working across massive departments like game design, programming, animation, VFX. The workflow here is highly structured. You'll see complex project management systems and internal pipelines for everything, including assets, mocap, localization. There's also usually a rigid production timeline. You might have heard some of these terms used before, such as pre-production, production, your alpha milestone, your beta milestone, your gold master. These deadlines are usually tied to quarterly financials or marketing events. And because the stakes are so high and the budgets are in the tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars, there's always executive oversight on top of that as well. Creative decisions can often go through layers of producers, leads, managers, and marketing teams. In contrast to all that, indie development is the equivalent of you taking your iPhone with a few friends and making your own movie. Doesn't necessarily mean lower quality, but it does mean fewer people, more freedom, but also more risk. Indie teams can be as small as one person, handling everything from coding, art, writing, music, publishing. You name it, they'll do it. Other indie teams can be on the slightly larger side. We're talking maybe 3 to 15 people. Sometimes you'll contract in help as well, specifically like for audio or localization, something like that. More often than not, there is no formal pipeline. People wear many hats. The artist might also be the level designer. The programmer might also manage social media. Sometimes there's not even a publisher, so indies are free to make the creative choices that AAA usually wouldn't touch. Budgets can be tight though. Many indies have to turn to things like crowdfunding or early access. Maybe, if you're lucky, you can get a small publisher to take interest and do a deal there. With this small funding, it means limited tools, fewer iteration, fewer people, and potentially working remotely as well, no office space, keeping that cost down. AAA studios are often big corporations and they definitely act like it. They're investing tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars per game, and they expect to earn that back and then some. The result of this, it's more of a risk-adverse approach. We're seeing sequels, we're seeing reboots, we're seeing games set in universes that have already been established, just like Hollywood do, and they want to push proven monetization systems like battle passes and microtransactions to make as much money back as possible. On the business side, we'll see AAA studios go for big launches, pre-orders, DLC roadmaps, and live service models. This is all because success for them is measured in player attention and profit margins, rather than just having a successful game. Meanwhile, indie development, success for them is measured by the people making it. Perhaps they're just looking to find an audience for their creative product. Perhaps they don't really mind at all. They have a full-time job and this is a side project and they don't even mind if it hits at all. This freedom to not care so much about monetization can lead to more honest and unique games coming out. It also matters where games launch. AAA games will typically see on every platform available. They want as many players engaged as much as they can, so they'll launch on every platform to get as many people as possible. Indie games, not so much. You might see games go up on Steam, you might see games go up in itch.io. Maybe you'll get a Game Pass deal, maybe you'll get a port to Switch, but Other than that, it's down to the developer what they think is best. We briefly touched on tooling earlier, and AAA studios definitely have the advantage here where they can afford to build their own tools if necessary, and if not, they can license some pretty powerful proprietary technology as well. You might have heard of Unreal Engine 5. That was built for Fortnite and now is being used by so many different games in the AAA space. But there are more out there unique to their games, such as the Creation Kit for Bethesda's games or the RE engine for Resident Evil. These are typically optimized in-house and have dedicated teams just to support those tools. And as a result, they can have super advanced rigging, physics, lighting, facial capture, you name it, they could have it in their game, and they have the ability to change what they want as well. Indie developers don't have that freedom. They typically have to go for something off the shelf. Unreal 5 is becoming more common with indie developers, but we'll still see a lot of use from Unity, Godot, for instance, just smaller engines that are more lightweight, where you don't have to do as much optimization and you don't have to do as much digging into the code. But this doesn't mean they are any worse off. We still see some of the most visually and mechanically inventive games coming from the indie space, where they use off-the-shelf tools, but in creative ways. Culture and workflow vary massively between AAA and indie development as well. In AAA, you'll typically specialize deeply in a subject. For instance, one artist might only do trees for the entire project. One program might only do AI navigation for the entire project, and their days will be spent between meetings, talking about milestones, and clearing their Jira tickets. It's a highly efficient system dedicated to getting the maximum efficiency out of a single person for the course of several years. Indie teams will need to be more flexible. One person could be spent doing multiple things. For instance, one day you might be animating something, the next day you might be doing a cutscene. Writer might also be doing the design for the game. As you might imagine, this flexibility allows for a lot of creativity for a single individual, but it also creates a lot of chaos. A certain amount of structure is needed to be able to finish a game and get it shipped. So if you break down that structure too much, you might have a few problems when it comes to actually launching your game. And when it comes to shipping these games, one of the major differences between AAA and indie is the variable degrees of polish. AAA studios have full QA departments. Sometimes they even have outsourced QA departments as well. These testers hammer the game daily, sending reports back to developers on what works and what doesn't work. They'll also test for things like localization, accessibility, and platform compliance as well. Indie developers obviously don't have that massive resource they can call on, so maybe you're using your friends, maybe you're using early access players, perhaps you have a Discord community that you can rely on there to catch bugs. As a result, some indie games can launch in a rough shape, but due to that flexibility, they can improve at a quick pace. On the flip side of that, AAA games can still launch very buggy sometimes. The bigger scope of those games means more moving parts, it means more can go wrong. And sadly, it also means they can move slower to address certain issues when it's got to trickle down through all these department heads. Overall, both AAA and indie game development shapes the industry in their own ways. AAA really pushes the limits of technology and spectacle that we see on the screen, where indie can push forward the creativity and the emotional storytelling that we'll miss from those big blockbuster experiences. And as players, understanding how a game is made makes us appreciate the choices behind the features we've come to love. Why does something feel so tightly designed or wildly ambitious? Why a bug might exist or why it hasn't been dealt with? Or why a game took 6 years rather than 2? All of these kind of questions can be answered from the dev team themselves. So there you have it. Thank you for joining me in this deep dive into the indie space and the AAA space and the differences between them. Please do leave a comment on your favorite indie title and your favorite AAA title, the differences you see between them and what might have happened during their developments. And I'll catch you in the next one.